Hello, this is Chris Hoy, and I want to thank you for joining me today for this acrylic painting tutorial. I am going to be showing you how to paint a very simple beach scene, step by step, from start to finish. So let's get started. I am going to be painting on an MDF surface. Just want to give it a quick seal with multi-purpose sealer. And this is a wonderful acrylic base medium by DecoArt. Just going to spread it around very quickly with a damp, not wet brush, and make sure that I'm brushing it to the edges, not over the edges. I don't want to get that roll that goes down over the sides. Brush it out nice and smooth. I'm using a 1.5 inch select brush. All supplies are available from Cupboard Distributing. And just make sure we get a nice, even, smooth coat on that. And I will give it a quick dry with my heat tool. This is a heated craft tool, super quiet, super effective. It dries quickly. And again, it's not noisy. I thought it would be fun to do this beach scene. I taught my 11-year-old granddaughter how to paint this, and she did a beautiful job. So I think you will enjoy it. I think you'll do a great job as well. Alrighty, so I'm going to just start out by laying in some basic colors. I'm using DecoArt Americana paint. I have Salem Blue, Shoreline, and Spa Blue. You can use any blues. I just thought the turquoise blues were just really pretty. I'm going to go down to a 3/4 inch oval wash. This is a very soft bristle. And let's just get the palette over here so we can get that on there. Haven't quite decided what I want to do yet, but I do know I want to start from dark and get a little bit lighter as I go toward the bottom edge. And that paint wasn't mixed very well. So I'm just going to loosely lay this on. The Americana paint is a beautiful paint, but I don't like to paint heavy coats. I like to put it on nice and smooth. And if I need a second coat, I can go back and add more paint to it. Otherwise, you end up getting kind of a heavy, thick coverage, and that can be a little bit bulky to work with. Not cleaning my brush out, I'm just wiping it out and blending those two together using a little bit of a slip slap stroke. And this oval on the wash allows me to lay the paint in there without getting a strong stop and start line. And pick up some of that Spa Blue. Just kind of lay it in there and then work it back up into that wet paint. And that'll be good for now. Switching over to Fawn. And this will be our sand color. Wipe the brush out, but I didn't clean it. And I'll just let those two colors kind of blend together as well. If you get a little bit of blue in that sand, it just looks like some water's been splashed over there. Just a very soft blend between the two colors. And your wave can kind of come at an angle. It doesn't have to go straight up and down. Now I will dry this because I don't want to have anytime the paint is still wet, when you add another layer over top of it, you're going to lift some of it off, and I don't want to have any of those areas lift up. I can tell when the paint is dry because it's no longer glossy. Lightly touch it, you can feel if it's cool or if it's not dry, it will still be kind of cool to touch. And I'm just going to repeat that same step all over again. Start with the Salem blue. Such a pretty blue. I did wash my brush a little bit. I'm going to come up just a little bit higher on that jar lid. I didn't want brown up in this area. Now this second coat's going on very well. Picking up a little bit of Whispering Turquoise, blend it into that Salem blue. Doesn't have to be smooth. This water is very fluid. So if you get a little movement in your strokes, it's just going to look like water moving around. And I am bringing it down into that brown. Wipe that off. If your paint is dragging, if your brush is dragging, just pick up a little bit of water to help that paint move. You can also, if you need a little extra moisture and you like to mist, you can get a mister and just lightly spray it to get that paint soft and fluid again. If you look closely, you'll see that it's not super smooth, but it does blend from one shade into the next shade. That's exactly what I want. You don't want to have straight lines going across where one color ends and one color begins. Okay. I have trouble with the cameras moving in and out, so. And I want that to dry a little bit. This is a very quick, easy project. I taught my 11-year-old daughter how to do this. She did a beautiful job, and I'm sure you will as well. Now we want to bring that wave down through here. So I'm going to go to Snow White. Get my brush out of the water. Just get a little bit of Snow White on my palette. Dipping my brush into water. Just going to gently pull some of that water off. Loading just the toe or the tip of the brush with a little bit of Snow White. And I'm going to flip this upside down. It's just going to be easier for me to create the edge of the wave. And I'll just decide, and I'm kind of scooting it. I'm not doing a straight line. And you can make it straight, you can make it come down. You just don't want it to just be a solid line. Now this may look like it's a strong color. I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see how very transparent it is. When I float, I kind of do a little bit of a wiggle. I can add, let me put another line in here so you can see. If I want to add another little bit of splash, you know how it goes up just a little bit? Just a hint of color, and look how amazing that looks. Just a little, you know how it recedes in and out. Just don't want it to be samey. That's when it begins to not look very natural. I can go ahead and add some ripples or, you know, the tips of waves. And this can be ocean water or this could be lake water, because you've been at lakes where they're kind of a little bit, they have a little bit of a white, little bit of a white tip on them. And I'm just going to kind of pull that over. And you can see this other edge is very, almost like it fades into nothing. It's just a very quiet. And I'm going to kind of soften that down a little bit. I don't want it real strong. want to create a little bit more movement up through here. Switching over to my radical round. This is a number 5 round that I created. It has a really nice fat belly on it and a sharp point. Absolutely love this brush. I can get fine detail with the point. The bristles hold a lot of water, so I can really load it up and yet still maintain that nice sharp point on there. And I'm just going to add some little wave lines across here. And those don't have to be anything specific. I just want to keep it very loose and not straight. So I'm going to soften that down. Use your fingers. I can go back and strengthen some of those a little bit. Just want to make sure that they're not straight across and they're not perfectly placed. And this should be dry. I want to go back and just strengthen that. So again, I'm just loading the toe of my brush. I'm going to brush it on my palette. Make sure that I don't have a real strong line, very soft. And I'll just kind of, you notice I'm not exactly just going identically on that line. Just want to enhance it a little bit. Water is very fluid, so you're going to have a lot of movement there. I think that looks pretty good already. Let me get back on here. And let's take this and pull it out just a little bit. I want to pull that over. And we'll give that a quick dry. Already it looks pretty good. We really haven't done much at all. This is my favorite part. We're going to start adding a little bit of depth. I'm going to start in the sand. I have light cinnamon. Any medium tone brown would work. Doing the same thing that I did with the white, just picking up a touch on the toe of my brush. A very soft hint of color, not a really strong one. And I want to tuck it right under. Let me go in just a little bit more here. I'm going to tuck it right under that edge where that wave hit. And you can see that I kind of let my brush bounce a little bit, so I don't have a perfect smooth float. Just want to add a little bit of color, tuck it up under there. And bring that around. Just keep going with it. Maybe I need to back out just a little bit more. These little ones, and I've not reloaded my brush yet. If you have your brush loaded correctly, you should be able to do quite a bit before you have to reload. And because these are a little bit softer, the shading underneath should also be very light and very quiet. Just enough to know that it's there, just a little bit. Look how dimensional that looks already. That's pretty cool. Now to do these waves back here, and you can go with a lot of different shades of blue. I wanted to keep it very bluish, so I'm going with sapphire. If you want to go more of a green color, I was looking at desert wellness, and that's not the one. I think it was a water one. Mermaid Tail has a green tint to it. It's a beautiful color. Open Water, I think, was the other one. Open Water is a beautiful turquoise. Has a lot of green in it. I wanted to go more with blue, so I'm going to stick with the sapphire. Same deal. We're going to get just a little bit on the toe of the brush. Don't need much paint at all, just a very small touch. Right here, just want to get a teeny bit on the toe. Still using my 1/2 inch angle. It's a beautiful brush. And we'll just kind of tuck that in here. That's a little bit strong, so I'm going to get a touch of water, thin it down on my brush, and I didn't clean my brush off, but I'm just going to move that paint around. I want it to be soft, not a real strong. I can have it a little stronger here where these waves start to turn over, because that's going to have a deeper shadow on it. If you want, you can add just a little bit of color up, like ripples, so it's not just real static, but a little bit of movement there. Just allow it to be just kind of putting color on there and pushing it around so that it looks a little bit like movement, not just a solid color. Move that around. And I do like to pull a little bit in front of, so it just doesn't look like a solid wave across there or water movement. And you can see how I work the brush to kind of tuck it in, pull it in there. You do want to maintain a little bit of a horizontal flow to it. A lot of times the water, even though if it comes up on the short at an angle, as it goes out, it kind of stays more horizontal. Oh, look at that, that's pretty. I haven't decided yet, but I think I'm going to shade around the sides of this. See how you can take the toe of the brush and just really tuck it around and preserve those raggedy edges of the water splashing through there. Usually it's better to work a little bit. And there's not much up here. I did not have much of a water line with the white, so I'm going to keep this kind of minimal as well. And I'll just bring some of that down here just a little bit. And you can see through the water, it's kind of transparent. If you want to, I'm going to pick up just a little touch of the Salem blue, and I can kind of tuck some around the sand so it looks like water in the sand. I think not having solid floats of color really accentuate that definition of the water splashing. Okay, I want to add a little bit of foam to my waves, and using my Deerfoot stippler, pick up a little bit of that white. Tap your brush so those bristles open up. And just going to, I want to go this way because I want that rounded toe to kind of splash on some of those. I don't want to add this to every wave, just those little waves that are a tad bit stronger. Okay, my rule of thumb, you can always go back and add more. So if you're not sure if you want to do this much, back off and then let it dry and take a peek at it and see if you want to add just a little bit more. You can add some anywhere you want. But remember, as you go back further, it's going to be a little less defined. And I'm going to splash some of that down here. I think it's kind of splashing, and that looks really nice. We have not spent much time at all just to create that. Now, another thing I like to do, and I'm just going to grab a little bit of this sand color and some snow white, and it's just enough sand fawn in there just to give it a hint of color. And I want to just create a little round half moon kind of thing, so it looks like a seashell. And we can put a couple here. And seashells have different colors on them, so even if you want to grab a little bit of peach, or we have to do more than 2. We have to do at least 3. And put a little shimmer on that. If you want to, you can add a touch of blue. I can go in with that. Picked up a little bit of that spa blue and just touched on it just a little bit. And what that does, it's just going to give it a little hint of color on it. Not anything big and really noticeable. Just that soft, a little bit of color always makes a big difference. That's kind of my motto. Going down to a 1/2 inch angle and pick up just a touch of that light cinnamon on the toe of my brush, the same thing that we did beneath the waves. And I want to create just a little bit of a shadow under there. Just a little bit, doesn't take much. But all of a sudden those little shells are nestled in that sand. And we'll just put some, if you want to, you can put some little, you know, like little bird tracks kind of going up there. Like a little, you know how they run back when the waves come? We can also add just a bit of splattering. Let me go out just a little bit. I'm going to use the splatter brush. I love this splatter brush. Just going to pick up a little bit of water and tap it into my white paint. And then I will hold it in. Let me show you how this is done. I'm going to hold it in my left hand and flick it with my right hand, and I get this really nice little pattern of splatters. Super easy to control. I can add a little bit of splatters here and there. This is going to kind of look like a little bit of water splashing. We can add it through here a little bit. If I want to, I can go back and add just a hint of that little bit of light cinnamon. I think I'll just put that more towards the bottom here and add a little bit of splash down there. I got some of that brown up there. I'm not real, I don't want brown in my wave, so I'm just going to go back with a paper towel and lift some of that up. Now, if you have your splattering on here and you think, oh, these brown ones are a little bit too strong, just go back with a paper towel and touch it. And I did it while it was still wet, but sort of kind of dry because I wanted that to still be on there. Look at that. Doesn't that look gorgeous? Okay, I'm gonna let this dry. Let's go up here, and I should have painted this a little higher because this is actually part of the glass jar. So this is that same Salem blue. Just gonna put a little bit on there so that we have color up there. And go in with, this is gray sky. I think I want slate gray, just a little bit darker. And I will paint that lid slate gray. And we'll just get a nice coat on there. Again, I'm not going from the edge in, I'm going from the inside out. And that way I keep my edges nice and clean. Everyone has a way they paint that's a little bit more comfortable, left to right, right to left. So make sure that your surface is turned to your comfort. And I'm not going to be too fussy on this lid. I just want to make sure that it's nice and straight so it looks like a lid. And lids are kind of fun because you don't have to be too terribly fussy with them. I can put just a little more that have a kind of a bare spot. Keep an eye out for things like that. If you have a bare spot, take a moment to touch it up. And give it a quick dry. I need to go in, wondering if that's going to be a more solid enough base coat, and I don't think it is. If you put your base coats on smoothly and evenly, a lot of times you don't have to go back and put 2 coats on. I have a very light hand when it comes to putting paint on. So often 2 coats or 1 coat is not enough, even if I'm careful on how it's applied. So to go back and add a 2nd or 3rd coat, it doesn't take much because I don't have much paint on there, so it's not going to take long for it to dry. The lid is just going to be a simple adding of a darker color and a lighter color to create that look of shading. And I'm using zinc. And I tell you, some of the times when you pick a color, it's because of the name. I just thought this should be a zinc lid, so I should have a zinc shading on here. In my mind, that made sense. The bottom edge is going to be nice and dark. I have enough moisture in my brush that I can float over this several times, move the paint around. I'm going to do the same thing under that next little ridge. If it's not straight, my paint's still nice and fluid, I can go back and straighten it up by just stroking over it, moving it back and forth to get a nice coverage. Let your brushes do the work for you. You have beautiful brushes. They do amazing things. You just have to let them do their thing, and you won't have to work nearly as hard. And we'll just slide that on there just like that. And one more ring. Now I could take a little more time and be a little more fussy with this, but I just want to get the look that has layers of rings, and it's going to work just fine. Going back with my radical round, give that a little shot of paint just to set that paint. And pick up a little bit of titanium white. Have to decide where my highlights are going to be. I know they'll be on the top. So I just loaded my brush. I have a fair amount of water in my brush. And I load my brush well. I have a lot of paint in my brush, but I still have a nice tip on it. Make sure that I keep that tip nice and sharp. A little bit of paint makes a big difference. You can always go back and add more. Just a very light touch. That looks pretty good. Do a little bit over here. If you don't go all the way across, it kind of looks like it's more rounded. I will go back probably and put more highlight on there and probably a little more shading there as well. So what do you think? Pretty nice. But I think at this point it looks a little bit empty. So I had an idea. Hopefully it will work. We get to try this together. Let me see what we have here. Haven't decided if I want to go with Prussian blue or Payne's gray. I love Payne's gray. It's a phenomenal color. However, Payne's gray is such a dark color. Kind of have this beachy thing going on. I think I'm going to try Prussian blue. It's also a very strong color. Leans a little bit on the translucent side, but it's really pretty. So I'm thinking, again, a little bit of paint makes a big difference. So I'm going to go in very light and see what that looks like. I'm liking what it does, so I'm going to pick it up just a little bit more. I kind of am thinking I like that look of beach glass. You want to be able to move that paint for a fair amount of time. Really tuck it up under there. Don't try to do the finish coat, the first coat, if that makes sense. Always go back and add more. Okay, we've got this lip, and it has kind of an edge on it. And I want to bring those two. Just see I went down a little bit, but when I go back, I let my brush move that paint and straighten it until it's fairly straight across. I'm thinking I'm going to wrap some raffia around it. I thought about tying on a seashell as well. Yeah, we need to go down the side here. This is a glass jar, so we're going to put a little bit of this Prussian blue around here. Make it look a little bit glassy. And a very light float. I don't have much paint on my brush at all, but I can go back and add more. So I guess the main thing that I want to get across is a little bit of paint makes a big difference. Don't try to lay it on heavy. I know it's hard when you're really anxious to kind of get to that point where it's looking good and you want to really kind of bring it all together. It will work. This area under here goes in, so it's going to be like a double float above and below. So I can make that little almost a square area, just a little bit darker up there. Now, after adding that in there, I was looking down here. I'm going to tuck just a little more darkness right in there. Don't know why, it just looked like it needed to have a little bit more in there. It's never too late to put stuff in there. And then I can pull a little bit of a bigger splash down here too. Ooh, that looks good. I think I will leave that. Now up here, I think I'm going to get brave and pop a little Payne's Gray in there just to deepen down that shadowing just a teeny tiny bit. Payne's Gray is such a whale of a color, and it doesn't take much to make a huge difference on shading. Now we've got pretty good shading in there, but I want to give this that hint of blue along with that shading, and keep this just a little bit on the quieter side. But can you see how that strengthens that shading so much? It just really needed that. Now, if you're uncomfortable using a 1/2 inch angle, bump down to a 1/4 inch if that's a little bit easier to work with. And if you're worried about those highlights, I knew I was going to have to go back and reinforce them anyways, so I'm not worried about losing them at all. Use the toe of my brush almost like a liner to pull that paint across. And I don't go left to right, I always go right to left, and that keeps this part of my brush clean. And then when I need to float, I can go back and pull that float over, and I've still kept this part of my brush clean, and I get a nice float on that. And if I need more, I can go back and darken it. Oh, I think that looks so much better. You know, just, again, that little bit of paint. And let's go back and brighten up. I'm not going to brighten up all of the highlights the same. You need that really strong splash of color. I have down here my brighter waves, so I can add just a little bit. It's stronger on this side, but I don't want it to be brought all the way across. It's so much easier. If you're not sure, take it in front of a mirror, take a picture of it. You want to keep these highlights and these highlights balanced. There's fewer over here, but the strength of the highlight's still going to be strong. And a little bit, you always have to have that one area that the light is the strongest. Okay. Go out just a little bit. That looks pretty good. I think since I toned down the shadows around the edge, I think I want to tone down these just a little bit here. I'm going to go in with burnt umber, just a shade darker. And because I'm just going to keep this really minimal, I'm going to use my 1/4 inch angle. I'll show you where I'm going to put it. A little bit here and there, but not everywhere. There, on the bottom of that shell. There. Can you see what a difference that makes? And I'm going to put a little bit here, and I don't want it to be smooth. So this is kind of acts like a shadow and creates depth. Just want to put a little bit up in there. Ooh, look how that pushed it back. Yeah, that's what I want. A little bit up here. When we bring that dark in with the Payne's Gray and the Prussian, you need to add just a little bit here and there as well. I like that word, here and there. It's just, not every shadow is going to be as strong as some of the other shadows. So I can just add a pop of darkness right in there, and all of a sudden that pushes it back. Absolutely huge. It's these little touches that you do. Now I'm looking at these shells, and they look nice, but I'm just going to add that little bit of white on there, and a little bit. I don't want it smooth. I don't want to cover up that other color, but all of a sudden that becomes very highlighted. And just a little bit. You know how water is, it just kind of dances around. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I am going to look at this for a minute and decide what to do next. I decided that I need to add just a little more like water splashing around here and there, and so I have some Snow White, just putting a little bit of it on my toe of my brush. When this dries, it's going to be very, very quiet and subtle, but I thought it looked a little bit plain. So you can always go in and add just a little bit of a hint of a ripple of water if there's an area that seems just a little bit too quiet or too dull. Wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I've been playing around with an idea, but one of my favorite tools is to use the Ultra Matte Varnish and just put a coat of it all over top. I'm at this point where I'm not sure what I want to do, and I'm afraid that if I do something I don't like, I'm going to have to figure out a way to undo it. So by putting on a coat of Ultra Matte Varnish, what that will do is protect everything that I've painted so far, and then let that harden. And I painted it, I put a coat of this on about 45 minutes ago and took a break so that it would be ultra dry and ready in case I need to remove it. But I had the shop, I own Cupboard Distributing, and so I get them to do whatever I want them to do. But we had this particular stencil in I think it's like a 10 by 10 or a 12 by 12, but it's really large. I love this stencil. I love all the different sayings on it, and I wanted to do something a little bit edgy, and I asked them before we left work today to cut one. This one is 6 by 6, and it fits on here perfectly. So what I was thinking about doing is stenciling the words over top of the scene we just painted. Now, the only thing that kind of concerned me were these pretty little shells that I painted down here. Hadn't thought about that, but they're kind of right where these letters might go. So I was looking at this. I'm not real sure, but I think at this point what I will do is go ahead and stencil everything except this part, sand dollars. And the reason I don't want to do that, that's where all this is. And I think if I leave that open, it's going to look great. But I like this relax and unwind. So what I'm going to do, now that I have that matte protective, I call it my safety mat. I have that protective cover on there. I can put this on if I don't like it. I can wipe it off real quick, but I'm going to just stencil this top part. Take a look at it. This one's kind of in my little shell, but I can drop that down if I want to. Now, what color do I want to use? I thought about using this blue, really, quite a bit. I'm not sure. So, you know what you can do? You can do a couple things. Because I have this nice matte varnish on it, I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to stencil a little bit of it and see if I like it. My second choice is this Prussian blue, which is going to be a lot stronger. Just haven't decided how blue I want this. And I am going to be using my Spectacular stencil brush, and this is a stencil brush I designed specifically because I am terrible at stenciling, and I wanted a brush that would make me look good. This has super soft bristles. You can dry brush with it. You can stencil softly with it. You can stencil opaquely with it. But my favorite part is most stencil brushes are made out of a bristle, which means that when you clean them out with water, the bristles swell up and get a little bit soft. So you have to wait until they dry before you go on to your next color. This, it does not matter. You can use a color, dry it off, go to another color, just towel dry it, you're good. Doesn't have to be, I need to get paper towel. So I'm just going to try this little part right now. Loading my brush with the sapphire. Love this color. Working it into the bristles. And I don't want a lot of heavy paint on the tip of the bristles, but I'm still going to take and wipe it over a paper towel to see what I have. And I'm just going to dry brush this on here. I should have put a little more masking tape up there so I don't get it on the, kind of doing a little bit of a swirl to see what it looks like. Do we like that? I don't think I do. I'm going to pull that off. To me, it's too much the same color. So I'm thinking that I want something with a little more contrast. And see, I can just go in here and wipe this off with kind of a no fear kind of attitude. And now, I would not do this on freshly painted surfaces. So if you just haven't sealed it or you have fresh paint on there, kind of either wait a little bit or put that ultra matte sealer on there. I need to get some of this paint off there. Was thinking this was going to be, to me it looks a little bit too primary and I say cheesy, but it just doesn't have a richness to it. I like a deeper, richer effect on that. So let's see what we got here. And I am not going to cut corners this time. I'm going to get my painter's tape out, and when I tape this on, I'm going to make sure. I still have some of that I should have scrubbed a little bit harder, but that's okay. We'll just line it back up where it was. And I can make sure that it's straight on both sides. And I love 12 tape. It's a really nice, it holds well, but it's a low tack, so you don't have to be too concerned about how it sticks to your, I'm still not going to press it super hard. And I want to stop right here, so I'm going to just put a little bit of a mask over that bottom half. Okay, let's go with Prussian blue. I think that's going to be a little bit stronger, and it's going to be a little more, I don't want it to stand out so much that it looks awkward. I want it to look really nice. I didn't really clean my brush, but I want to get that brighter blue out. And you can see what a difference is in color. Very strong. If this doesn't work, we'll bump it up to Payne's Gray. So let me try this. Very light touch. I don't want this super strong. Almost a whisper. And if some of the waves in the background show through, that's going to be fine with me. Much, much better. Ooh, I like that. But I'm a messy stenciler, so I want to make sure that I'm not going to get paint over there. I'm just going to put that on there for a moment. Problem is, if you don't mask it off, then the letters on the edge never get as much color on them. Every time you reload, you want to make sure that you check your brush on a paper towel. If I want to go back and add more paint to this to make it a little bit stronger, I can. Usually I go right to left, but I think because I tested that corner up there. Kind of started from the other way over. Another thing you can do is just grab something that has a straight edge on it to kind of mask that off so that you don't go over the edge. This is a test in bravery when you have this painted and it looks fantastic to go over with this dark paint. I always think when you do something totally off the wall and different, it's either going to look super impressive or super awful. And there's nothing we can't fix. So I always think, you know, go for it. What's the worst that could happen? We really don't have that much time in it anyways. Just making sure that my tones are pretty much even all the way across. What do you think? Oh, I think that looks nice. Now I've got that little bit of down here that I wanted to put, that relax and unwind. So I'm just going to put that down. Make sure it's below my seashells and put a little bit of tape there to keep it secure. I usually keep tape kind of stuck to my, somewhere around my painting area so that I can grab it rather quickly. I'm going to be careful of these little pieces on the letters. I don't want to pull them off. And then this tape is a low tack tape. It still grabs pretty good. I don't want to damage that stencil. Okay. So I'll just put this to the side for future use. Let me get a little more paint. I'm pretty dry on my palette. And I'm just going to take this painter's pal and just lay it there to protect it. And do a quick soft swirl. And go both directions, you'll get a better coverage. Oh, that's cute. That's really cute. Now, the only thing I'm not liking right here, that H is into one of my shaded areas. So I'm going to take my Mono Zero eraser. Just going to dampen it a little bit. It has a really tiny, tiny little tip on it. It is an eraser. Put it in my water dish. And I can just go back and lift some of that color out of there. So it looks like a seashell. This little eraser is such a great tool to have to clean up any areas that might be a little messy or where paint is dried and you need to lift it up just a little bit. It will remove any dried paint. It doesn't matter if it's been on there for a month, a year, 10 minutes. It will take all that paint off of there. So Just gonna clean that up. That's easy, so much easier than going back and touching it up. So what do you think? I think that looks fantastic. Isn't that fun? Just a simple project. And I thought it would be really fun just to tie some jute around the top of it. And I have a little seashell. You could tie beach glass on there. There's my seashell. But I thought it would be fun to use a little seashell, and we'll just paint this white. And again, I'm starting in the middle, brushing toward the sides. You'll never get that runoff that goes down the outer edge. Great way to hold something with a hole in it. Take your stylus, put it in that hole, and then just pull it down. And this may need a couple coats. I was careful when I put it on. Kind of brush it on to fan out like it does for the seashell. So I think maybe that won't be 2 coats. I kind of like that. A little bit of a transparent look to it. Let's go in with, I'm going to switch over to Payne's Gray. I want a darker color. Move this over. Okay, my Payne's Gray is I had another bottle here. Just don't want to get rid of those bottles if they're not totally empty. A little bit of Payne's Gray. And I'm going to kind of swipe around here. Very transparent float. A little bit more on that. A lot of water, and then I will just take this. I'm just kind of staying on that chisel edge. Pull it out. You could do this with a liner. I just really like a 1/2 inch angle. It's my favorite brush. And we need a little bit of color on there. I'm thinking that a touch of fawn might make it look a little more earthy and of the sea. Just a touch of fawn, and pull it down from the top. Oh, this looks really nice together. And you could use a round for this as well. I just put a little bit on those wings down here as well. Oh, that looks really nice. How easy is that? I just have a thin coat on there, just went back and added a little bit of shading, a little bit of highlighting. Almost looks like a real seashell. I think what I may do, let me give this a little bit of heat. I may go in with a little bit of white. I go up down to a 1/4 inch angle. Just want to grab a little bit on the tip and put some brightness down there. And that makes this bottom edge look a little bit rounded and highlighted. Again, you can use a round or a liner. I'm just staying on the chisel edge and pulling it up so that it gives that look of all of those ridges in there. Okay, I think that's gonna look good on there. Tie that around there. My mind is wondering if this should be a little bit darker, the wording. So I'm just going to try a little bit, because that's how my mind works. Just put it back on there and line it up. Some of this is a little bit washy. That kind of bothers me a little bit. So I'm going to take this awesome angle, get a little bit of Payne's Gray. Hope I don't regret this. And just see what that does. It's very dark. Just kind of wondering what it would be if I did just like around the edges and maybe that little star. Maybe across the bottom. This is how you play. It gives a little more weight to it. Whoops, wrong way here. I have to stand up to turn that. Right there, I need just a little bit more. Yeah, I like the darker just a little bit. It adds more impact. And I'll put just a touch down here as well. Just around the bottom. Can you see the difference? That just brings a little more weight down there. So I think doing it in Prussian blue, then going back and making the bottom half of the letters and the sides a little bit darker, just gives a little more impact to it. Now, since I've done that, I'm thinking that this outer edge needs a little bit more darkness. I like saturated color, and I usually really like to lay in strong shading and highlighting. Just going back over where we shaded with Prussian blue and put a little more strength with using Payne's Gray. Let your brush create those straight lines. And I'm going to really darken these sides down. I like that really well. Now that I have those dark letters on there, I like having that stronger shading around the outer edge. Go in just a little bit. Can you see what a huge difference just that little bit of paint makes? keep that brush very loose with water so you can really push that shading around. I can make it darker in the corners, and because it's so wet I can go back where I've previously shaded and I can strengthen that also. I don't think I want it too dark down here in the bottom. I like those corners a little stronger. Oh, that looks nice. And let's add some up here. This area underneath that rim is going to be a little bit darker. So I'm going back and darken that down. It's kind of a fun way to, you could play around if you wanted to. You could do things to the lettering, but I like the way that you see the water through the lettering. And you know, it might be kind of fun to do lay the water over the lettering, you know, or just do a really pale, almost a white over top of, do the letters in a light color instead of a dark color. You would get a totally different look on that. Got a little bit of dark here from my stencil, I think. I'll just pull that out with my handy little awesome angle, or mono zero eraser. Gets rid of all that. And I have a little spot here I want to clean up. Gosh, I think that looks fun. And just because I want to add a little sparkle here, add a little highlight here. And we could highlight the jar, but I'm not sure that with horizontal highlights it's going to become too busy. I think that would not be a good thing. And let's finish this up. I'm going to dry it really well, and then I will seal it in my little seashell. I'm going to make sure that's dry also. I usually do a matte varnish, but I think I'll go ahead and just use the ultra matte varnish. If you're looking for a good brush, this it's called a SureTouch Choice Short. These bristles are so soft they will not leave brush lines, so you can stroke that varnish on very smoothly, and you're not going to have those ridges. And I'm brushing to the sides again. I don't want it to run down. And then I'll just turn it over and go the other direction. I really like the way this blue looks with the brown. Very nice. I thought it might be a little bit, sometimes browns and blues together get a little bit muddy, but I think this looks really good. And I'm going to brush my shell as well. And again, that is the Ultra Matte Varnish. All the supplies that I'm using are available at Cupboard Distributing, www.cdwood.com. They have everything. Give this a quick dry. If you wanted to make this look a little more rustic, you could lightly sand the lettering. You just have to be careful with what's in the background, that you don't get too much texture going on and too much busyness, because it can be just a little bit overwhelming if it becomes too too much. I decided I wanted to put twine around this and tie the shell on it, but no matter where I tied it, it covered the words up. And I thought about going higher, but I still didn't like that. So I think what I'm going to do is just tie this. I think it needs a little bit of something around there. And this is kind of a baker's twine, little scrap I had around. And I'll just tie that on. Almost has a little bit of body of its own, and I'm gonna just put a little knot in that just to give a bit of decoration to that middle area. Gives a little bit of color right there. Put a wire here around the little hang holes and just give that a little twist. And I'll cut the end of that off. And I wondered about adding the seashell up here. Like maybe like right there. And what I can do is just give it a little twist. It's going to stay there. And then when I put this in the hole, decide where you want it to be at. And it's just going to stay right where you want it. I think I'll have it just a little bit lower. And you want to keep that tight so you get a good twist. There we go. One way, it's just like painting. One way of twisting is a little more natural. If you want to, you could curl the ends. I do have a nice little pair of needle nose pliers that will give a little twist to the end on that, but I am just going to cut this off short and this one off short. And there we have it. We'll make this look like it was on there as well. So I've got a little bit of a twist on there to make it look like, or to hold it in place. But when I do this, it's just going to make it look like it's tied on, and it won't come off. So you know how it is when you have something and you have to keep fussing with it. We'll just put a little clip on that. Do we want another couple ties on here? Why not? Okay, and if you have trouble making any of these behave, just put a little touch of little dot of glue on there, and that will hold it in place. There we go. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, everything is available at Cupboard Distributing, www.cdwood.com. If you've enjoyed this tutorial today, please hit like and subscribe to my channel. I'm hoping to have a lot more techniques and fun projects to teach you coming up very shortly. I want to thank you for joining me and hope to see you in the future.